Well, good morning. Welcome to Daily Videos with me, Pastor Michelle. Today's Monday, January 25th, and let's get started with prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Sometimes it's good to just take a deep breath. So I've got my water. I am not drinking like a whole gallon a day. I'm drinking like half a gallon. So I drink like half of this each day, or I have a smaller one. So I call this Bertha, and then I call my smaller one Bertha 2. Or Berthette. I don't know. So let's hear a reading from First Chronicles to begin our day. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Malalo, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the descendants of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Maddah, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Teras, the descendants of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Diphath, and Togarmah, the descendants of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. So God's love note. Imagine your entire nation being displaced and then finally getting to come back to the land your grandfather called home. Pretty disoriented. That's why my faithful child wrote Chronicles, to remind my children that they had a legacy, despite the generations of disruption they had weathered. They needed the comfort of remembering they were descended from Adam, from Moses, from the prophets. They needed to know that they were a people, my people, even when life had torn them from the land they loved. I want you to know that you are descended from Adam and Eve, from Moses and Miriam, from David and Jonathan, and Ruth and Naomi. And you are an inheritor of their legacy of faithfulness and tenacity. You are my treasured child, made in my image, as were they. So today I want you to look in a mirror and see where my image shines through your own image. And then I want you to reflect on how your whole faith community are inheritors of this legacy, that you stand on the shoulders of the judges and kings and prophets, called to a great calling for my sake, all made in my image. That's a very important thing to remember. And most of the time, I have to admit, when I read through like the begots, you know, so and so begot so and so and begot so and so, in the book of Chronicles, my eyes glaze over a little. But it is important to remember our heritage and just think, you know, we're descended from Adam and Eve, from David, Jonathan. I mean, we are all, each of us, made in God's image. So that's an important thing to remember. Every one of us, male and female, God created them, and everything in between. So even if you identify as non-binary or trans or gender non-conforming, I mean, there's so many different ways people identify. But however you identify, know that the most important label that you have, in my opinion, is beloved child of God. So there's a sermon there. So let's meet some more people of New York, shall we? So, woo! All right. So when I was 16, she says, I was watching Saturday Night Live one night and I accidentally hit my foot with the remote so hard that a piece of the remote broke off, but I didn't feel a thing. I got confused and started hitting myself, but I couldn't feel anything on the entire left side of my body. When I went to the doctor, they said they have to do brain surgery or the numbness would spread. I was so scared. They told me there was a chance of paralysis or stroke or even death. I woke up. When they were wheeling me out of the operation, there were clouds painted on the ceiling, and I remember thinking, oh, I died. And I was perfectly fine with that. But then we bumped into something, and suddenly it felt like someone had wrung my neck like a towel and kicked me as hard as they could in the head. Well, so like this guy says, the amplitudes of life get smaller as you age. There are less and less things to experience for the first time. And each time you experience something, you don't get quite as excited, but you don't get quite as hurt either. I wonder what it will feel like when I'm 70. And speaking of 70, this woman may be 70. She says, the pigeons always come, but I wasn't expecting the ducks. All right. So the woman with the surgery, that's scary. But I have to say, it reminds me of the night of my car accident, because I remember, you know, shock does something weird to your body. It makes your body kind of go in animated suspended animation or something. because I remember I did not feel a bit of pain until my body like woke up from the shock. Because I remember getting in the life squad in the ambulance and not really thinking much about it, because I'm glad that they pushed me to get in it, because I didn't realize I was hurt. And I remember laying in that hospital bed, and it was like my body woke up at one point, and every bit of pain I felt, everything that I felt before the accident hit me. Because I was actually on my way that night to use the bathroom at the church, because I was in Dayton still, because I had to pee. And like after the moments right after the crash, it's like I didn't even remember that I had to pee. I hadn't eaten all day. I was starving, but all that, every bit of feeling that I had before the accident, like it got stuck and it hit pause or something. And then all of a sudden there was a moment, it's like my body woke up and I felt every bit of pain. I felt the need to pee. I felt the need to eat. And boy, the pain was severe. I remember I wasn't even able to walk to the bathroom. I had to go like right there. And I wouldn't relive that night for a million years. Anyway, I don't know what made me think about that night. So let's change topics to the Feast of Purim, which is from the story of Esther. So here's a French 17th century artist painted this picture of Esther before the king. So ever since that happy deliverance, as we know that Esther was able to deliver the Jews, ever since that happy deliverance has been celebrated during the Jewish Feast of Purim, the 14th day of the month of Adar, as a day for gladness. The word Purim is the plural of Pur or Lot, like Haman threw to determine the best date for staging the massacre. During the feast, the book of Esther is read to the congregation, which traditionally engages in hissing and stamping of feet whenever the name of Haman is read. So tomorrow we're going to start talking about leading women in the New Testament. So that should be good. So we'll start tomorrow. So let's hear some more Mockingjay, shall we? In my head, I hear President Snow's words spoken the morning I was to begin the victory tour. Katniss Everdeen, the girl who was on fire, you have provided a spark that left unattended may grow to an inferno that destroys Panem. Turns out he wasn't exaggerating or simply trying to scare me. He was genuinely attempting to enlist my help. But I had already set something in motion that I had no ability to control. Still burning, I think numbly. The fires at the coal mines belch black smoke in the distance. There's no one left to care. More than 90% of the district's population is dead. The remaining 800 or so are refugees in 13, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the same thing as being homeless forever. I know I shouldn't think that. I know I should be grateful for the way we've been welcomed. Sick, wounded, starving, and empty-handed. I could never get around the fact that 13 was instrumental in 12's destruction. This doesn't absolve me of blame. There's plenty of blame to go around, but without them, I would not have been part of a larger plot to overthrow the Capitol or had the wherewithal to do it. The citizens of 12 had no organized resistance movement of their own, no say in any of this. They only had the misfortune to have me. Some survivors think it's good luck to be free of 12 at last, to have escaped the endless hunger and oppression, the perilous mines, the lash of our final head peacekeeper, Womulus thread. To have a new home at all is seen as a wonder, since up until a short time ago, we haven't even known that 13 existed. The credit for the survivors' escape has landed squarely on Gale's shoulders, although he's loath to accept it. As soon as the quarter quell was over, as soon as I had been lifted from the arena, the electricity in 12 was cut. The TVs went black and the scene became so silent, people could hear one another's heartbeats. No one did anything to protest or celebrate what had happened in the arena, yet within 15 minutes, the sky was filled with hover planes and the bombs were raining down. It was Gale who thought of the meadow, one of the few places not filled with old wooden homes embedded with coal dust. He herded those he could in his direction, including my mother and Prim. He formed the team that pulled down the fence, now just a harmless chain link barrier with the electricity off, and led the people into the woods. He took them to the only place he could think of, the lake my father had shown me as a child, and it was from there they watched the distant flames eat up everything they knew in the world. By dawn, the bombers were gone, the fires dying, the final stragglers rounded up. My mother and Prim had set up a medical area for the injured and were attempting to treat them with whatever they could glean from the woods. Gail had 2 sets of bows and arrows, 1 hunting knife, 1 fishing net, and over 800 terrified people to feed. With the help of those who were able-bodied, they managed for 3 days, and that's when the hovercraft unexpectedly arrived to evacuate them to 13, where there were more than enough clean, white living compartments, plenty of clothing, and 3 meals a day. The compartments had the disadvantage of being underground. The clothing was identical, and the food was relatively tasteless. But for the refugees of 12, these were minor considerations. They were safe, they were being cared for, they were alive, and eagerly welcomed. So, my friends, God bless you. Have a wonderful day.